Coming up on this episode of the Spiro podcast.
To grow, you need employees. You can't do it all yourself. You're just going to kill yourself. Remember, you started your business and defined as a commercial, profitable enterprise that works for you. Okay, you didn't start your business to get a job. You started your business to get away from the job. So if you want to do it right, you need a team around you, and you need to be able to lead that team so that they can thrive, so that they can do it better than you.
Welcome to the Spiro podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. With your hosts, Todd Kivimaki and Craig Magrum.
Hi, and welcome to the Spiro podcast, managing your real estate photography and videography business. Spiro is a software platform designed to help you not just manage your day-to-day business, but really help you grow it and scale it and have success with your business as well. We celebrate success at Spiro, and so that's what we want to do with you. I'm Craig Magrum, host of the Spiro podcast, and along with me each and most every week, our co-host and also Spiro founder and owner, Todd Kivimaki. We're halfway through the year, Todd.
It is crazy. And the scary thing is typically the second half of the year feels like it goes faster. So it's like it'll be Christmas in 2 weeks.
Yeah, something like that. Time's relative. Time is relative.
True.
Oh, awesome. Well, we've got a kind of a challenging topic to talk about today. But one I don't know if we've covered this before, but critical to the success of your business. And we're going to be talking about critical communication with your employees and contractors, which I know that's kind of broad, but we're going to dive into some specific things that covers that can be challenging at times in dealing with other people in your organization. So before we get into that, though, we always like to get a review or a summary on what's happening with Spiro.
Let's pay for this podcast. So to our sponsors, you all can just tune out right now. So Spiro, I'll be short today. Spiro is our platform that we've used at our real estate media business for 20 years. And it has allowed us to shoot 12,000 plus properties per year, a team of 30 plus photographers in the field. And we do it all in that one system. So it's going to automate your life. It's going to bring in your editors, task, workflows. It's going to do all that and more for you. So if you want to find out more, spiro.media, we'd love to talk to you about it. We'd love to give you a demo on it and show you how it can help you scale your business or streamline your business. Also, another thing I'd like to mention that we hear from all of you is, what editor should I use? And we had that question for many years, and we built our own editing company. And the name of the company is Creo. I am a minority owner in the company, and they have local owners in Creo, Lobden and Shin, and they are great individuals, my business partners as well. They edit Wow's photos, a lot of Wow's photos, and they can edit yours as well. Now, they are full, but they are taking a waiting list. So if you want to find out more information, creollc.net. You can talk to Lobden and find out more about what they could do for you. But like I mentioned, they are full. So if you're like, I'd like to figure out a consistent editor that I can count on, that communicates clearly, that integrates with Spiro, send them an email, get on the waiting list, and have a great conversation with them.
They do a fantastic job. I just got a comment today from a client about how I'm going to say our editors, because the magic that they do is awesome. But the realtor said, you guys have set a very high bar in this market. So huge compliment to their work.
Yeah. Glad to hear. And they've worked really hard for it.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Anything else before we dive in, Todd?
I have a million things. I love to mention the Merge Fleet. We haven't talked about our logic-based video editor, but I won't.
All right. We'll save it for the next episode.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So let's talk communication. You see what I did there?
Oh, I like that, Craig.
You don't have to lie. It's okay.
I see what you did there.
Before we dive in, I saw this T-shirt. I'm going to have my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law has this big Cricut machine. I saw this T-shirt idea, and I love puns, right? And everybody says,
you are the pun master.
championship, verified champion
with a trophy
of Twin Acres Campground in Ohio.
Yes.
Anyway, just thought I'd throw that in there. All right. So anyway, you know the phrase "no pun intended," Todd.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
I saw this T-shirt that says "Intend your puns, you cowards," and I saw that. I'm gonna have my mother-in-law make that on a black T-shirt. That shirt is me. Anyway.
That is you, Craig. That's
cowards.
you always intend your puns, don't you?
I'm very intentional. Very intentional. Every once in a while, it is unintended, but I hear it immediately like, oh yeah, I'll own that one. Anyway, okay. So talking about communication and whatnot, something that we haven't talked a lot, if at all, about on this podcast that relates to the business of real estate media, and really any business where you are leading people, is the subject. Excuse me, I'm really froggy today. I apologize, guys. Is the subject of critical communication with your staff and with your contractors. Now, what does that mean, critical communication? It could be something as simple as trying to set a vision as the leader. And it could go to the extreme of, okay, how about a middle point? Building a culture. You have to communicate very critically and clearly when you're trying to build a culture in a company. But then it can also get into the uncomfortable area of critical communication with an employee or staff member or contractor that's not performing to the level that you need them to. Mm-hmm. So how do you handle communications in those awkward, hard situations where you have to have a hard discussion with an employee? So I'd kind of like to hit all three of those if we have time, Todd, and get some of your insight on this, on critical communication.
Communication is something that I've failed at for many years, and I don't claim to have perfected it even at this stage, but I do think about it a lot. When I started bringing people into the company originally, I thought just because it was in my brain that they knew it. It's like, hey, well, I know this. Why don't you know this? And honestly, it took me a lot more years than it should have to figure out that I need to actually be clear with that, set expectations, and communicate that out to people that you work with. And just as a side note, everything we talk about today is the same for your clients as well. You know, I have many conversations with you and an individual about a week ago, and he had some questions in his brain about why a client didn't use him again. And they didn't even actually download or pay for the photos. And he had about 3 reasons why this client didn't use him, or they're busy and things like that. I'm like, well, why don't you just call them and follow up with them and ask them? Mm-hmm. And that's, some of those conversations are difficult to have because that's your product, and I get it. You took pride in shooting this photography. You made sure that it looked the way it needed to, and you deliver it to your client, and that's your baby. And it hurts when someone doesn't like it. And I don't know that was the problem. Maybe the client didn't even get the email, or maybe they don't even know what to do with the email. Mm-hmm. But when we assume, then we just start making up a bunch of crazy stuff in our head that's honestly not true. And honestly, I was like, I just told him, I was like, you got to get out of your own truths. Like, is that true or is that your own truth? Because why live in your own truths? And it's super simple just to call and ask the person. So all this can flow through to your clients and should be flowing through to your clients as well. They're going to be confused about working with you. So very early on, I just assumed that because it was in my head, it was in everybody's head. And I honestly, as I think back, Craig, there was a lot of great people that transitioned from WOW just because I wasn't a good leader and I wasn't up to, setting them up, communicating what I expected and being clear about that, and then setting boundaries and guardrails, and then taking a minute to say, hey, these are some things, some gaps that we've seen. And those are all difficult conversations to have. And as you mentioned at the beginning of this, Craig, probably the most difficult is pinning your personality. the most difficult is telling people when they do wrong. And that if that's not difficult for you, then that's a nice thing. Also, I just want to point out to you that, maybe you're more of a D personality and you're okay pointing out when they do wrong. For you, I would just say, hey, you just need to pull back a little bit and empathize with them a little bit, or try to find empathy in why they're doing that, because the delivery is super important as well.
Right. You said D personality. For those that maybe wonder what that is, there's something called the DISC profile, DISC, and each of those letters are different personality traits. Look it up. There's all sorts of resources out there. But a D is typically a very strong leader, very bold, out front, outspoken. So for those of you who are maybe wondering, that's what Todd was referring to there.
Yeah, and that's maybe a good one to note down, that we could talk about personality tests. I know the DISC personality Enneagram is popular now. They all are pretty close to giving you the same data. And that is something that a coach worked with me for a long time, understanding it, looking at it, knowing what I am, knowing what the employees are, then understanding what clients can even be, for you to understand what's going through their brain so that you can connect your brain with them and you can communicate better.
Right. Before we dive too deep into specific cases like hard discussions with employees, let's kind of frame this in the sense of, okay, so if we don't have good, clear communication with our, specifically our employee, well, it could be clients, but employees, contractors, and clients, what is the business impact of that? Say you've hired somebody new. You've not done a great job of communicating well with them, whether it's training or feedback or whatever, and they decide to move on. What's the business impact of that? What's the financial impact of that?
Well, it can be huge. It is. For those of you that have tried to hire and are hiring right now, it's not the easiest thing in the world. It can be quite challenging to find really good people, qualified people, and as a growing business, people that you can afford. I think back to some of the very early employees. I'm like, why did they ever say yes? Like it was like we pay nothing. We had no structure. We had no benefits. I just had a couple of bad jokes and they liked them. So I got lucky. But it can be challenging, and you get through that process and you take the time, and then you get excited and they get excited about your company. And then if you have problems with communicating and onboarding and training or managing or disciplining, then all of that is for nothing. And that person transitions on, and the impact could be huge, not only financially for your company, but from just a growth standpoint.
The financial side of this, I was just having a discussion with my oldest son, who's in the process of looking for a job right now. And he's had some challenges. And I explained to him, Bub, you got to look at I call him Bub. You got to look at this from the employer's standpoint, that they have to consider a number of issues when they're hiring somebody, because it's an investment to hire somebody. There's that initial training period where the employee is really not productive in, say, the first 2 weeks, first month, first 6 weeks, whatever, because they're not doing the full scope of the job. They're in a learning mode. You are imparting knowledge to them. So they're not being productive. They're not making you money. And you're taking your resources to invest in them. So they want to be very careful in who they hire, because of that initial financial outlay, when they're getting no benefit necessarily in the short term back from that. So that's why it's critically important for you as the owners, the leader, to be careful about how you hire, but then also, like you said, the communication, the training and whatnot. I just kind of jumped in there, but I was just thinking about that conversation with Eben. So.
Yeah. It's a huge thing for a business, and it takes a lot of time, and companies spend a lot of money on finding people, hiring, onboarding, and hoping that people get through to being productive, part of the organization.
Right. So you were starting to dig into then, say having to have a hard conversation with an employee or a contractor about expectations or whatever. But in the scope of what we just talked about, let's dive back into that.
Yeah, I want to set up a quick scenario that I think will help and really helped me. So at Wow, our real estate media company, we always say that the two most important things are communication and expectations.
Mm.
And those go hand in hand. You typically communicate with people to set proper expectations, and then you set yourself up for success. And expectations, everybody will create them. So if you don't communicate and set those expectations with your clients, they will set them. So I'll just give you an example. We talked about it as a team today. The Spiro team did, and I brought it up, and we found a gap. And just as a side note, I use that term strategically. It's in my past, I would have called it a problem. It's something that needs fixed. There's a lot of different phrases you could put on it. I had a coach that always called them gaps. And a gap is just a blip on the radar that you have not come across yet, or you haven't thought about, and it just needs adjustment. Typically, when you say there's a problem or something to that, just mentally, it just has this demeanor, and especially to a team, you might be able to take it okay in your head. And one thing about leading a team is you're responsible to make sure that the team follows and the team has this, and you're building a culture too, and a morale comes with that. And
Right.
if even something as small as just negative terms, like we have somebody at Wow, like on an Enneagram, she's a 6, which 6 thinks like the sky's always falling. And that's not always bad. Sometimes that can be bad. There's pluses and minuses to every personality type. But to a personality type of a 6, when you use the word problem, that's like red alert, like, holy cow, we're probably going to lose every client and we're going to go bankrupt and I'm not going to have a job. Like that's what a 6 does if you're a 6 in an Enneagram. And so just something as small as using a phrase of like, hey, we have a gap. It's just something we have to fill. I mean, it just, and I know you guys are driving to your next shoot going like, Todd, you're crazy. Like that's just semantics. And for you it is, but for your employees, it's not. And I would really just urge you to believe me in that, because I thought the same thing. I was like, that's crazy. It's just a phrase. And phrases matter, words matter. Like I teach my kids, we're all teaching our kids this right now. Like words matter. They really do.
Remember that phrase, sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That is one of the most untrue statements in existence.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So back, okay, so thanks for letting me sidestep there. Let me come back to my point was we had somebody chat in yesterday, a Spiro user, and they wanted to know, they had a question about a change in the system. And it was a change somewhat pertinent to just what their business needed. And relatively from a development scale, it wouldn't be a huge amount of time. Now, we don't really put things into development that way, but the bottom line is that our customer support person messaged back like, hey, thanks for this. Like we can check on this with engineering and I'll let you know when I know more. And so in our minds, from our standpoint, what that workflow is like engineering is typically 3 to 4 days out to reviewing requests like this. Then at that point, they would need to set a scope of this. Is this how is this going to be carried out? Is there a charge because this is a specific update for a client? Things like that. So literally, like we are quite a ways away from having this updated. And so then the client I saw in the chat comes back, I think it was 5 hours later, and said, hello, and the name of the representative, like, hey, any update on this? You got an update for me? And it was just like, I was like, oh, that's a gap right there, because, we all want the best for the client, as we all do. But if we would just communicate a little bit differently and letting our clients know what the process is going to be, then we didn't set expectations on our end. Thus, expectations were set. They were set by the client. And is it fair or not? Like it doesn't work we could never do that as a company. But in their mind, like I can't fault them because it's something they needed. They're like, hey, can I have this? And they don't know, they shouldn't have to think about what goes into making that change.
Right.
I don't put that on them. We just didn't set the expectations. Thus, they set their own expectations. And now it's like, okay, we need to reset expectations.
Right.
So that is why I think setting expectations, communicating clearly is just so important.
Good insight. And one of the biggest reasons there are disagreements or areas of conflict or disappointment is unmet expectations. I learned that pretty early. So yeah, making sure that you set clear expectations. There's the number one thing that you need to work on in clear communication with whether it's clients, employees, or contractors.
Segueing into, say you have an employee that is not performing to the level that you would like them to. And this is something that you're like, oh, how can they not know this? Or we've trained over this, or I've told them a whole one time over it, or maybe you've told them 10 times over it. And you know how to do it. And this might be the simplest thing in your mind. Like literally, this might be the simplest thing. And you now are to the point that you're frustrated about it. We've all been there. We all do it. Okay. And sometimes it can be silly things. And I think it's very important that you bring these things up. So the first thing that I think about is the timing of bringing this up. So I use an analogy, and a coach used it with me, is thinking about a ship. Is the hole in the ship underwater or above water? Mm-hmm. If that hole is underwater, you're taking on water into the hull of the ship. For those of you that own a ship or a boat, if you take too much water into your boat, what happens? The thing sinks. Okay. So it's important that if you have a hole below water, you got to plug that sucker pretty quick, immediately. Now, the hole might be above water, and you might take on a little water as you're going through the ocean. Water might bounce up into the hole, but it's not going to compromise the ship. You're not going to have enough water bounced up into the hole that it's actually going to sink the ship. So timing is incredibly important when you do this, because you can only go to a person, I've learned, so many times immediately when it happens before it just has a negative effect. And then they have in their mind this PTSD that every time you visit them, you're doing nothing but just complaining about the hard work that they're trying to do. So I've failed at this many times. And I also at the same time have taken too much time to address an employee concern. So timing is important. You need to think about timing. The second thing is, let's say if the hole is below water and you need to fix this immediately, you need to be aware of who is around when you address this employee. Now, the conversation is going to be private, but how you let this employee know that you need to talk to them is important. So ideally, let's go through a few communication styles. Say this person is working in a group setting and you come into that group setting and you say, hey, Craig, I need to talk to you. Okay, so right there, the boss just walked in and said, hey, Craig, I need to talk to you. Okay, so you've started a little ripple that will turn into a wave. So people are going to assume, again, Craig's like, Craig looked up and, oh, yeah, exactly. And it's just like, I'm in the middle of something, like, okay, something must be wrong. So do not do that. If you have something like that, you need to go up and say, hey, Craig, I've got a question. Can you help me with something real quick? That's just what I use, something like that. Hey, Craig, I need your help. Hey, Craig, I got a quick question for you. Can I borrow you just for a minute?
That tone is totally different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm imagining you coming to me. Yeah, I wouldn't be nearly as nervous. And even if it is a hard conversation, the way you've set it up makes it a lot easier and less awkward. I'd love that. That's good, Todd. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And again, I've just failed at it enough over the years that I realized. And the way that I did it, another form of communication can be digital. So you're gonna email them, you're gonna Slack them, you're gonna text them. The problem with this is if the appointment is not immediate, say it runs over a weekend. I'm just making this up. It's not like I've ever done it before. Yeah, I've done it plenty of times. So say if the communication is over the weekend, you email someone on Friday because you're like, what do I need to get done this week? Oh, yeah, I need to meet with Craig on Monday. Hey, Craig, Hope you had a great week. Hey, can we meet for 30 minutes at 1 p.m. on Monday? Thanks, Todd. Okay, so Craig gets, okay, yeah, sure, I'd be happy to meet. I'll be, and we'll meet yeah, exactly. Now, Craig is biting his nails the whole weekend, wondering what the heck
what does
Todd
he want
needs.
to, what does he want to talk about?
Yes. Analyzing, what did I do? Did I say that one thing? I said that one thing, and oh my goodness, maybe I bet it's going to, I bet I'm just going to lose my job, or I bet, and then, well, why would he ever want to? And then it could be anger, it could be sadness, it could be like a whole carousel of emotions. Like, don't do that to people.
And I was going to go camping that weekend, Todd. Thanks a lot for ruining my weekend.
Exactly. And you did, and you did not. This would be year 2 of the pun trophy, of the dad joke trophy. It would have just ruined the whole repeat. And then the dynasty is done. There's no repeat.
Right. I've not defended my title. Because you didn't frame the question of what you needed to talk with me about.
Yes. Now, if your boss does that to you, say, hey, I'd be happy to meet with you at 1. What can I prepare to make sure that I'm efficient with your time? That's
a great way to try and pry a little bit and figure it out so you're not stressing over it. That's good.
Yeah. So don't leave a big gap. So schedule an appointment with them, and then this meeting should be private. Now, if this is a meeting that there's a lot, like this is a build-up meeting, and this is potentially leading up to you needing to terminate someone, there are times when you should have another person with you. Ideally, it's a leader of your company. If you don't have someone in a leadership role and you're kind of flat from an organizational perspective, meaning you're just at the top and everyone else kind of has a role underneath you, and you don't have a hierarchy, then you could pull in a business advisor. You could pull in someone that you trust, but just something to think about. There's times in the room where I am in the room and I know that I need someone else because I need another set of ears in there, and I need someone else witnessing and being a part of the conversation.
That's really wise. And having a written record as well, I would say, of conversations, just what was discussed and, things like that. Because I mean, these days we live in a litigious society. I mean, people will sue over the smallest things. So to cover yourself and your business, having someone else there and having a written record, I would say, of the conversation is critically important in your communication.
Yeah, that's so good, Craig. And then after the meeting, you're going to email this person and you're going to say, hey, it was great to meet today. Just as and if it wasn't great to meet, you don't have to say that. Hey, nice. Thank you for your time. Here's what we went over. I just want to make sure you understand these points, and this is what I expect moving forward. That's a great tip, Craig.
Yeah.
So during the conversation, and this is just what works for me, I'm not saying it's a perfect thing. I like to generally try to have a little bit of small talk at the beginning, as long as this isn't like, hey, short and sweet to the point. Like, I've got it. Like, it's very imperative that I have to deliver this message, and I'm setting the tone the entire time. This is a human to human thing. Like, your employees who feel a human connection to you, and you vice versa. When you feel that connection, you begin to have empathy for them, so you can understand why they did something that they did. And then when you realize, like, oh, they really had my best intentions in mind. And there's just these wonderful thoughts and conversations that can happen by connecting with another human. We were built that way. So that is just one thing I like to start off with, and just make sure that, if you can break the ice a little bit, great. And then moving into the conversation, say this individual is, say they're a photographer for you. This is a pretty simple example. And they had a complaint from an agent about being rude. So what I like to find out is, I like to always find out how that employee thinks things are going. Okay, so I like to get their opinion first. And sometimes, hey, how's it going can be very broad. Right. So you could start to narrow it down, say, hey, I just have a couple questions for you about the property you shot last Tuesday for Jane at 123 Main Street. Do you remember that property? Okay, so if they don't remember, pull up the photos, get them to the point that they say, oh, yeah, I remember this property. Yeah, I remember shooting this property. And then say, okay, great. Awesome. Hey, just wanted to get your opinion. How did things go for you at that day at that property? And then let them talk. Okay. I always think it's so important to get the other person's opinion on how they think they're doing. If they think they're doing a fabulous job and you blindside them with the fact, and maybe it doesn't work in this example, but say they've messed up loading paper in the copier the last 10 times and it's jammed. And they think they're doing a fabulous job loading the copier, then there's a problem with you because they think everything's going great. They've done it 10. Hey, I'm doing it the same way. I've done it 10 times already. Nobody's told me I've messed up the copier. I didn't know anything different. When I hit print, it prints, and I'm just helping out by loading the copier. Little did they know that you're the one that unjammed the paper the last 10 times. It took you 20 minutes each time. You got a paper cut on 3 hands. And I know you don't have 3 hands, but like, you see what I'm saying? Like, that's how, when we don't communicate, that's how goofy things get. And then you have to live in it. And you're like, how did that even happen? You only have 2 hands. How did you get a paper cut on 3 hands? Like, sometimes I look back at some things that, like, situations, and I sit and I'm just like, how did that even happen? Like, that's such a simple thing and it blew up to this.
Right.
So ask them how they think. So how do you think the appointment with Jane at 123 Main Street went last Tuesday? And let them talk. Now, all of you that know me, this can be difficult for me. I've learned the trade over the years, but when you ask someone a question, just shut your mouth. Let them talk. Learn this from my big brother. I used to be an over talker because I hate silence. I actually love it now.
I was going to say, I wouldn't know that from our staff meetings.
Yes, exactly, Craig.
For those of you that have never sat in on a staff meeting, Todd loves awkward silence now. So, what's the wins for this week? And if somebody doesn't pipe in right away, we'll sit there for a little while.
I love it. And it's funny, like, okay, guys, what happened? What are the wins for this week? And everybody's going, Todd, it's Friday morning. Why are we even thinking about wins? Like, I just want to get to Saturday. And I'm like, my smiley face. And I know no one's going to say anything right away. And there's a good 30, 45 seconds of silence. And then you get all the same people that it's awkward enough. They all speak at the same time because they just have to give in.
Right. Can't take that silence. Todd, I did read a proverb this week. I was reading the Bible this week and read a proverb that says, basically, I'm going to paraphrase it, but a loud and cheerful greeting in the morning will be taken as a curse.
I love it, Craig.
I love how real the Bible can be.
It really can be.
Don't talk to me until I've had my coffee.
Yes.
Anyway, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so ask them and then just let them speak. Let them speak about it, tell you how they think it went. Let them go into if there was any problems. If you need to nudge them, say, oh, and was the homeowner there? And let them speak about, yes, the homeowner was there. We talked about her daughter. We both, went to the same high school, her daughter and I, and realized this one thing. And, she likes this. And we talked for quite a while. And so you might need to nudge them in a direction to be more precise with the answers that they're giving you back to pinpoint a situation. But that's the way I would handle that situation. I would keep asking questions. Do you think there was any reason why, or do you think there could have been anything going on with the homeowner? Did she seem stressed? How did the whole appointment end? Oh, I went back in. I said, thanks for your time. It's great to see you. And so just ask questions and let them talk. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, you're going to know what the complaint was. So let's say you knew that the homeowner was upset and thought the photographer was rude because they didn't say goodbye and they were quiet during the appointment. And this. So what you could say is, you could ask them, like, how did the appointment end? Did everything go okay? At that point, they might say, oh, well, I just finished them in the basement and then I left. And then you could ask them, were you able to say goodbye? Remember? And hopefully you have some procedures of how you train your photographers to end an appointment, what they should say, that they should definitely go back in and say goodbye. If you don't, here's a perfect gap that you can create one. So if your photographers are not saying goodbye and you don't tell them that they need to say goodbye and how to set expectations when they leave, beautiful. A new procedure right at the top. When leaving an appointment, finalizing a photography appointment. Here's what you do when the agent's there, when the homeowner's there, when no one's there. Here's what you say, what you do with the key, the lockbox, how do you double check the door, all these things. So you got a great opportunity. Again, semantics, you got a great opportunity to fill that gap to create a procedure. And at that point, you can continue to dig in and you can train how you want. And at that point, if you don't have a system to tell them to say goodbye, you need to blame it on the system. Do not blame that photographer for not saying goodbye.
That's good. That's good.
You blame them for not saying goodbye because you've always said goodbye. You're going to turn them callous towards you. You're going to turn them like, well, wait a minute. No, I did everything. That person could be an introvert. They could be terrified of going back in. Maybe they just looked at all 300 dolls that the homeowner had and spent 20 extra minutes and now they're late. Those houses, Craig, where you walk in, the owner's showing you every knickknack they've ever collected in all 85 years that they've been alive. I love those people, but just not during the day when I'm trying to get to my next shoot.
There was a house, no joke. Now, this is not when I was shooting. This is when my wife and I were looking for a home. Wall-to-wall Kiss memorabilia. Everything Kiss that you can think of. It was, sorry, flashback. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Didn't want to go back into that house.
Yeah. Not buying that one. So then just to wrap up here. So the final thing I would say is, hey, sorry, Craig, we had a homeowner call in and this is one point where we have a gap and we're going to learn from it. I'm sorry, I just didn't tell you of the proper expectations of what I want you to do when you leave an appointment. We've learned over the years, it's incredibly important just to go back in and to thank them for their time, to ask them if they have any more questions for you and to say goodbye. And doing that allows them to know that you're done. Then they can go back and they can put the house back to normal living and they can tell the dogs to come out of the crates and the kids to come out of the crates and things like that. And then they can live again because your photography's done.
Right.
So at that point, blame the system. Don't blame the employee. And then document it, like Craig mentioned. Send them a quick email afterwards. Hey, Craig, it was great to meet today. Thank you so much for sharing about your appointment.
Yep.
Just to recap, when you leave an appointment, here's what you should do. Here's the guide I've attached to this email. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks, Todd.
Perfect. What could be an awkward conversation actually de-escalated, very chill, great training opportunity for you to your employee or your contractor. Yeah, it's all how you frame the discussion that needs to be had. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So, okay, let me then push this envelope a little bit further, Todd.
Okay.
Say you've had multiple conversations and you're now at the point where the person might be bringing some toxicity into the culture, or has not performed well, and you've given them a lot of chances, and it's time to part ways.
Mm-hmm.
What is some practical advice on how to communicate that to that employee or contractor or whoever when you have to make the break with their employment?
Yeah. So in the cases where you have done everything you can and you have used time to educate, to build systems and educate about the systems, you've had, some leadership time where you have tried to build them up. You've tried to teach them and you feel as though it's just not a good fit. And there's, like you said, Craig, some toxicity and just some other things from it. There is a time to where you just need to move on. And again, we talked about timing. I've been bad at this over the years, and it's never easy. This is never easy. if it was easy, everybody would do that. I think I'm using that every podcast. I just love that phrase. Like, it's true. Like, when you come up against something hard, just tell yourself, hey, if it was easy, everybody would do it, but I know I can do it. Like, I know I possess the ability to do it. I'm going to do it for my business, and I'm going to do it for everyone that's at the business. Because that's one thing that in time, in the past, that I had as an error thought in my head. A thought error, that's what it is. That's an Eliism. Eli uses that. A thought error in my head is I thought, oh, well, I'm just going to keep them around and they'll be okay. Like, it's difficult for me. It's probably going to be difficult for them. And they've got a family. But no, like, there comes a time there where you just need to part ways with people, and you need to do it not just for yourself, not just for all of your employees, but for the other individual too.
Right.
And in these cases, I'm just going to speak from a point of how I would handle it. Now, there are some cases where you're an employer, you owe it to people to make sure that they have a fair shot. And there's sometimes where you need to have an attorney and you just need to consult with them. There has been decisions over the years that I have made in this case, and one in particular, that I had some ongoing dialogue with my attorney, and he was coaching me about what was I thinking, what did I try, and so on and so forth. Now, Ohio, where we mainly operate in, is an at-will state. Maybe your state as well, or in your part of the country, which means that somebody can be terminated for any reason. Like, they don't have to be here through the end of the year. Now, there's contracts as well, but it's an at-will state. And which means that I could terminate anybody for any reason and they would no longer have a job. And Ohio wouldn't have a problem with that. But I will tell you who can have a problem with that is if that employee thinks that you discriminated against them or you did something that was not, proper. That employee can then bring charges against you. Thus, it's no longer an employment thing. It's a suit against you that they think that you wrongfully terminated them for a reason. So that's a very edge case. I'm not saying it's going to happen to you, but I'm saying the world could be a crazy place and it could happen for you. So there's always times where we don't know what we don't know. That's when I call my attorney. I say, hey, this is what's happening. What do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking about doing next Thursday. Did you try this? Did you do this? Did you document this? Did you document that?
Right.
Have you done this?
Put it in this perspective. If you're thinking, I don't want to pay my lawyer charges, their hourly rate, what is it worth paying them versus what the lawsuit against you could potentially be if you were in the wrong? Yes. Spend the money on the attorney if it's that type of situation.
Yes, for sure. For sure. I mean, you're going to spend, a little bit of money on it. It's probably a 10-minute phone call. So even 10 minutes, if they make $400 an hour, it's not unaffordable for you.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So that conversation. So when it needs to happen, there's many strategies to this, and this is just what we do. So we don't terminate on a Friday. I think sometimes that's like the everybody thinks, let me do it on Friday and then we can get to the weekend. I don't know what the logic is. I think we either do a Tuesday or a Thursday because a coach told us to. So I can't give any more than that. But
so I know if Todd says, "Hey, Craig, I got a question for you," and it's a Tuesday. Oh man. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So I don't know what the logic is behind that. I just know that there's some study out there that says it's not great to do it on a Friday. And this is a point to where you don't need to justify anything in this conversation. So these conversations are short and sweet, and you need to get in your head what you're going to say. So, Craig, today effectively is your last day here at WOW. We're sorry it doesn't work out. I'll be happy to give you some time to collect all your things. You don't need to give a reason. You don't need to justify. In fact, you're just better to have one phrase of telling the person that they're no longer going to work there and that they're just, you'll give them some time to collect their stuff. And these are the things we need you to sign out of, or hopefully you have a nice switch that you can toggle them off in employee accounts. And then that's basically done. So the thing that, and your attorney can help you with some of that phrasing as to what you should or shouldn't say. The problem here lies that he who speaks first typically loses. So if you've had continuing conversations with this employee, this is not a surprise to them. Okay, so they know that this is coming. They are aware of it. So yeah, Shannon's first one to talk loses. Exactly. And so if you're talking during this conversation, you're going to talk yourself into a hole, and they're just going to have all of that to either be mad about you against, talk to someone about you against, or bring a suit against you.
Right. Manipulate the conversation, what actually happened. It can get messy.
Exactly. So this is short and sweet. If they ask questions, all you have to do is say the same thing again. I'm sorry, you don't understand. Today is your last date, yada, yada, yada. Say what your attorney told you to say, and then just keep saying that over and over again. There was one case at WOW that I literally had to say it almost 20 times. I just said it again and again. And this individual was trying to talk and sidestep and all these things, and I knew it was coming. It's just you just have to keep saying it again and again and again. Yeah. So at that point, that employee should not be surprised that they're being terminated, because you have had plenty of conversations with them, plenty of documentation about them. If that employee's surprised, and I would say you kind of have a problem as being a leader, that employee wasn't given really a fair shot. And I know there's some extreme cases that's not warranted, and I won't even go there because that's a loaded word. But bottom line is, when you terminate someone, if they're like, "Oh my goodness, I thought I was going to get Employee of the Month this month,"
right?
There's a problem there.
Without going into too much detail, how much of this do you put in your employee handbook, as far as handling performance issues or things like that? Do you put anything in the handbook?
Yeah, we do, Craig. I'll be the first to admit that I am not the most HR gifted individual. I might actually be negative in HR points. But we have over the years hired people that are really good at HR. We paid someone to write the handbook, and it talks about reviews. It talks about disciplinary actions. It talks about all those courses, and defines those so that the employee knows what that looks like.
Got it. Perfect. Smart to do. We can't stress enough, have things in writing. Mm-hmm. It will cover your rears in a lot of cases.
It sure will. And, the first couple, it didn't really hit me until I lost an employer or two that I was like, wow, that person was I really thought they were going to be a key part of my company. And you realize that you just didn't lead them to the way that they needed to be led, and you didn't set expectations, and you didn't build a relationship. And there's a whole host of things that you could be having gaps in. But, you might lose the first employee and say this employee just wasn't even going to be a good employee no matter how much you tried. So you're like, you might have this callous buildup about employees. But like, to grow, you need employees. You can't do it all yourself. You're just going to kill yourself. Remember, you started your business and defined as a commercial profitable enterprise that works for you. Okay. You didn't start your business to get a job. You started your business to get away from the job. So if you want to do it right, you need a team around you, and you need to be able to lead that team so that they can thrive, so that they can do it better than you.
That's a great place to stop this episode, Todd. And I want to throw out the idea of, how about we do a part 2, because we talked a lot about the critical communication with individual employees. You've just segued beautifully into talking about building culture, building a team around you, and the importance of communicating to that culture and communicating what that culture is. Can we cover that in the next episode?
Yeah, that would be great. I look forward to it.
Okay, awesome. Great material. Never an easy topic when you have to let somebody go or have hard conversations with training. But some great tips this week from Todd on how to have those conversations, and some practical things to cover yourself as well. Todd, thank you for all of that insight. Good stuff.
Yeah. And they do, just as an ending note, they do get easier. The first time you're going to screw that conversation up royally, and you're going to get out and you're going to call your coach or whoever, you're going to talk to your wife or spouse at home, and you're like, I just hacked this conversation up and it was terrible. But the thing is, you'll get better the next time. I remember the first conversations of all these that I had. I'm like, I was stuttering over myself. I don't even know if I was probably speaking a different language. And then you do it a time or two and you think about it, and then it just gets easier.
Yeah. Good encouragement. Thank you. Alrighty. Well, we got our topic for our next episode, so we will dive into communicating culture in the next episode of Spiro. But if you do have a question, some sort of business topic that you're kind of curious about, you'd like to learn more about, write us, send us an email, write us. Like people send letters anymore. What in the world?
We can give them our mailing address, Craig.
That would be kind of fun, actually, to get some handwritten notes. I still send handwritten thank yous to clients, and
yeah, it works.
It does, because it's unexpected these days. Anyway, email us hello@spiro.media. I like to end laughing. Anyway, even if I'm laughing at myself. hello@spiro.media. Drop us a line. Or if you're watching the YouTube version, leave a comment on the channel and on the episode. Guys, we appreciate you so much listening and watching each week. If you have found value in this podcast, please leave us a like, share it with others, whether you hit the share buttons, share it in a Facebook group, whatever. We just really appreciate that, because if we can encourage more business owners and help them develop successful businesses, that's a win we can all celebrate. All right. Take some time this week. Be thankful for your blessings. Make sure you take a breath. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for the Spiro Podcast, Managing Your Real Estate Photography and Videography Business. This is a production of Spiro and Wow Video Tours. You can find out more about Spiro's real estate media business management software at our website, spiro.media.